Hi, it's Jordan Teen 1, and today I'll be showing you how to make this cute little 3D Loomigurumi hamburger. So it's almost the same pattern as my Oreo cookie, minus of course all of these toppings that are on the hamburger. But I actually came up with the idea when I was making the cookie. I thought that I would try to make a vanilla and a chocolate cookie, and when I did these tan bands, or these skin tone bands, it reminded me of a hamburger bun, so that's why I decided to do that. So I've actually had this made for a while. So I think they turn out really nice, and I don't think they're too difficult to make, and since it is so small, it won't take you a terrible amount of time or a lot of bands to make. To make the hamburger, you're going to need a hook of some sort, and I'll be using a rainbow loom metal hook, but you can use a crochet hook or whatever you have available. You'll need some polyfill to stuff the hamburger with, and then I have a twist tie that I'll use to help me start the magic ring, but that's optional. You'll need a couple of clips, and then I have 112 of this darker tan skin tone from Rainbow Loom. I have 41 brown, 12 red, 8 yellow, and 8 green. The first thing we're going to do is make our magic ring. So we want 5 bands to go inside that center band, so you need a total of 6. And I do have a twist tie because I find that easier to begin the magic ring, but that's optional. And then I have a clip that I'll be using as my stitch marker, so I know where my rows end. So I'm going to take my twist tie and just put it up against my hook here. I'll take my first rubber band and I want to triple this on the hook. So I'm just going to put it on, twist, put it back on, twist, and then put it back on again. I'll pull my twist tie about halfway up and then bend it in half. So this is just going to help hold the 3 loops together and give me something to grab onto. If you don't have a twist tie, you'll just have to use your fingers to pinch those 3 bands together. And we're going to take our first band, get it on the hook. It's going to come through those 3 loops, back on your hook, and then 1 band slides through the other. I'm going back in through the front. This is where you need to make sure you're going through all 3 loops, so it helps that these are all together. Pull that through, back on my hook, so now you have the 3 loops, and the 1 will pull through the other 2. Back through again, and we're just going to be pulling them through one at a time. Back on, and then the end one pulls through the others. And then we have 2 left here to do. So that was our 4th one into the circle, and then here's the 5th. And the end pulls through the others. So now I can take this twist tie off, and you can see it gets kind of bunched up, so just take a second and sort of spread these bands out. And then I'm going to use my clip and attach it to the one that's on my hook. In row 2, you'll need 10 rubber bands, and we're going to do 2 single crochet into each one of our stitches. And let me just briefly show you, a stitch is like a sideways V that's on the edge of our magic ring, and you're going to just take your hook and push through both loops from front to back. You're always going to have the 2 loops. I'm going to take my first band, it's going through that stitch, back on my hook, so you have the 3, and then 1 pulls through the other. So that is a single crochet. That was 1, and we're going back through that same stitch, pull through your second one, back on your hook, and then the end one pulls through the other 2. Just move over to the left here through our next stitch, and again we want to do 2, so that's our first one, and then back through for a second, And if you're struggling with pulling it through with your hook, you can use your fingers to pull it over. So I'm just going through that next one. And again, I'm doing 2. And now this one gets 2. And then finally the last stitch is the one with a clip on it. So I should have 2 left, and I do. So that's the first one, and then back through that same for my last. And then I'm just going to move my clip to the band on my hook, so I know that's the end of that second row. Now in row 3 you need 20 rubber bands, and we're going to continue that pattern with 2 single crochet in each one of the stitches. So I'm just moving over here to the left, just doing 2 in each. So that's 1, and back through the same one for a second. So I'm not going to bother to count all of these out. So it's pretty typical that you do 2 single crochet to do an increase when you're first starting out with a magic ring, and then usually you just lessen the increases as your rows continue to grow. So hopefully by now everybody is getting the hang of doing this single crochet. It's really not too difficult once you get the hang of it. It might take a little bit to wrap your head around the whole concept of crocheting with rubber bands, but I think once it clicks, it's really a lot of fun to do, and there are just so many possibilities that you can make. And then this is our last one where the clip is again. You should have 2 bands left. And then again, we'll just move our clip. In row 4, you'll need 20 rubber bands, and this is going to be our last row of our beige color for our bun. And I am going to have this part here that's facing you that some may consider the inside of a Loomigurumi project. I want that to be the outside of my bun, so it's sort of curving this way. I'm going to make it curve the other way. If you like the look of this side better, you can certainly use that. I used this side in my Oreo cookie, but I decided I like this side for the hamburger bun. And now also we're going to do something a little bit different. We had been going through both loops of each one of the stitches so far, but this time we're just going to go through the outer loop, or the one that's farther away from us. So I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to put it in the middle of these 2 loops of this first stitch, and from front to back I'm going to push through, but I'm only going through that back loop. So I'll take my first span, it's going to pull through, and then back on my hook, and one slides through the other 2, just like a regular single crochet. The only difference is we're only going through that one loop. So we're moving over to the next one. Again, I'm going to take the hook and go in the middle, in between the V there, and I'm just pushing through that one loop towards the back, and then do that single crochet. So it's just going to be 1 in each one, but you're just doing that one back loop. And you'll notice as you're doing this, it will definitely feel looser to you than it felt when you're going through both of the loops. And the reason that I'm doing this is just because I want the bun to curve. It has a rounded edge, so that's why I'm just doing this one loop, just to give it some definition. And you'll notice as you're doing it that it's sort of turning inward. You can see how it looks here, and that's the look we want it to have. I think some of my bands look a little bit crazy. Sorry about that this time. I actually ran short on this color of skin tone bands, so I had to dismantle my poor little M&M. So he's missing his arms now, just so I could have enough bands to finish this tutorial. So we're almost the rest of the way around here, just a couple more to go. And then here's my last one where the clip is. Let me just take this clip off. It's kind of in my way. And again, I'm just going through that back loop. And then I'll reattach my clip here. So we've completed one half of the hamburger bun, and now what you need to do is go back and make a second one. So just for the sake of time, I'm not going to film this, but I will add the time to go back to if you feel like you need to follow along with the instructions again. So you can pause your video here and make your second half of your bun now. Once you've completed your second hamburger bun, you can take the first one and put that to the side, and we're going to continue to grow on the second one. So we're going to add another row, and this one's going to contain all of our toppings. So I have 12 red for the tomatoes or the ketchup, whatever you want to consider it. And then I have 8 of the yellow, which I initially wanted to be the corners of a piece of square cheese, but you could also consider this to be mustard. And then I also have 8 green for the lettuce. So for the yellow ones, let me just show you. What you're going to do is take one rubber band, and you want to quadruple this on your hook. So you're just twisting and putting it back on until you have 4 loops. And then you're going to take your second yellow, and you're just going to slide this quadrupled band on. So if for some reason you feel like it's too tight and you just feel like you can't manage it quadrupled, you can just triple it. But I would recommend doing it the 4 times, possibly even 5, because you want it to be nice and tight. So just do that for all of your yellow, so you'll have 4 sets of those. And then we're just going to continue on here, so let me get my hook back in. So I'm going to start with the red. I'm going to do 3 single crochet in a row. But now this time I want my hook to go from back to front. So we are going through 2 loops of the stitch, but I'm going from back and pushing forward. And I'll take my first red, back on my hook, and then 1 through the other 2. And then I'm going to that next stitch over. Again, I'm going back to front this time, so it's a little bit different. But I'm just doing that same single crochet, so that's 2. And then I'm going over to my next one, and this is going to be my 3rd. And now in this next stitch I'm going to do green. So I'm just going to push through from back to front, and I'm going to pull through one rubber band, and I do want to pull it through the red as well, make sort of a slip stitch there. But now what I'm also going to do is pull through a second green through the other two and back on my hook, just because I want the lettuce to stick out a little bit more. Then I'm going to my next stitch over, and here's where I'm going to do the yellow. So I'm going to take one side, pull it through, and now again I'm also going to go through the two green here since I'm switching colors, and then get the yellow back on, and then I'll pull one end through the other. So I'm on to my next stitch, and I'm just going to keep repeating this pattern now. So I'll do 3 red, and actually I forgot here, I'm going to do that slip stitch first, then get the other end back on, and then one end through the other. Move over to my next. I'm doing a second red, and now a third. In my next stitch here, I'm going to switch to the green. So I do want to go through all 3 bands on my hook, back on, and then another green band is coming through. Now I'm moving over to the next stitch to do my yellow. I don't know if you guys can hear, but it's starting to rain really hard, so if you hear any noise in the background, that's what it is. Now my yellow is going through my 2 green, get the other end, and then one through the other. And now I'm back to my 3 red, again doing that slip stitch every time I'm changing color. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Now my 2 green and this same one. So first go through the red, now another green, next stitch, have my yellow to come through all, and then one through the other. Now here's my last 3 red, so I'm coming through the yellow also, so that's 1, 2, and my last one. And now here's my second to last stitch. I have my 2 green, come through the red, my second green, and then here's my last one where the clip is. Let me just take that off. Yellow through the green, back on, and then one side through the other. So you can see here's your toppings, and if you want to move them around or adjust them at all, you can. In row 6, we're going to attach the hamburger. So I have brown rubber bands. I have 20 of those. And so we're just going to continue on. I am still going to do the stitch where I'm going in through from the back, just because I want the look of the bun and the middle to be different from one another. So we ended on a yellow here, so our next one is going to be the red stitch. So I'm going from back to front through the 2 red, and these are just going to be regular single crochets now. So I'm coming through the red, and then I also need to come through that yellow just because I'm changing color. Back on my hook, and then one through the other. And so now I have my next 2 red to go through. So we're just doing 1 in each. And now for the green here, it actually looks like we have two since we did 2 bands for each one of those. So I'm just going to go through the one that initially went through the bun. So it's going to be this one here. So just ignore this next green stitch. And now I need to go through the yellow. So I'm pushing through from back to front. And now I'm onto a red. Now let me just show you, when you do a slip stitch, it kind of makes it look a little bit confusing. So it looks like we might have a little stitch to go through here, like a little half stitch, but that isn't actually a stitch, it's just from us doing that slip stitch and changing colors. So the next one over here is actually the red we need to go through. And then I'll pull through my next brown. So we should have 3 red, so that was our first one, and now here's the second. And then once more. And I'm going through this first green, the one that's through the bun. I know it's a little bit confusing with the different shapes and different things we did for the toppings. So now I'm skipping this next green, and so I want to go through the yellow. Again, it might be a little bit hard to see what part of the yellow to go through, just because we have that quadrupled band that's right on top there. So just use your best judgment. Again, this next red is really not a true stitch, so we're going to the one next to that. So that's our first red. Go through the second here. And then one more. And now a green. And then our yellow. And now we have one more set here, so I'm skipping this first little half red and going through that next stitch. So we'll have the last 3 red to go through. You should have 2 left here. We have our green. And then finally the yellow. If I can get my hook under it here. And then move the clip. Now we need to stitch both of these 2 pieces together, and so I have 20 brown rubber bands for that. So I'm going to take the one side that's just the tan color, the smaller section. I'm going to get this back on my hook, and then I'm also going to go through this next stitch. So let me see here, it's this one over here to the left. And then I'm going to take the other section and I want to line this up. So I'm going to take the clip here, and you can see that the band that's on the clip, if it was going over, if I was doing another row, it would be pulling over here to the right. So what I'm going to do is just get this band on my hook, and then I'm also going to go through the next one that would be over here to the right. So let me see here. Going through this one. I know, again, it might look a little tricky. This little tiny brown half stitch is actually from our slip stitch, so this is the next one I would go through. So you're going to have the 2 stitches plus those 2 extra loose bands on your hook. Going to take a brown and I'm going to pull through all that are on my hook. Get the other end back on, and then one is going to slide through the other. So I can take these clips off now. And I'm just going to line up the stitches, and I'm just going to work my way around by putting these together. And actually, let me turn it this way. So I'll just move over to the left here. I'll just work from back to front since we've been doing that so far. And go to my next one here. And then go to the next one on the brown. Going to pull this through all the ones on my hook. Looks like I got hung up there, including the one here at the base. Get it back on, and one pulls through the other two. Again, working my way over to the left from back to front. Pull through this next one through all. Same way like when we do a slip stitch. So it should be pretty easy to see which stitches you need to go through. And then before we get it totally closed off, we will have to stuff it. So I'll go about 3/4 of the way around, and then I'll use my polyfill. I think the hardest part is remembering to do that sort of slip stitch where you go through all the bands, because we're used to doing the single crochet where you don't go through everything at once. You leave that one band still on your hook. And if any of these toppings are hanging down, just sort of push them out of the way and ignore them. So I lost that one there. Try this again. And if you're ever not sure which one you need to go through, if you look more to the side, I think it's a lot easier to tell if you've gone through that stitch or not. So sometimes you'll see me tilting whatever I'm working on towards me so I can see. Somehow I'm always wanting to get hung up here when I'm pulling through. So I think I'll do just a few more and then I'll get my polyfill. So let's see, I think I'll do a couple more yet. Because once you add that polyfill, it's kind of a pain to work with because you're trying to fight all that little pieces of fluff you don't want to get worked in between your stitches. So I like to add that as late as possible. So I think I'll add it after this one. And since it's a pretty small project here where you probably don't need a lot of polyfill, so I'm just going to take some little sections at a time. You want to stuff it full enough that it fills out that nice rounded shape, but just don't overstuff it. Now I have 4 more stitches to do here. So here's where you're going to have to fight all of this fluff. Just use your finger and try and push it back. So I'm continuing to go back to front. Definitely see little pieces of fuzz sticking out. And as it gets really closed off here, it gets harder to work with, or harder to tell where you're supposed to be going, I think. And then I have one more left here. Looks like I made it through one of the brown. There we go. And then I need one additional brown band just to tie this off. So it looks like there's a little bit of a gap here. Maybe I overstuffed it a little too much, or maybe it's just because that's where the green was. So I'm going to use this brown to tie it off right here, just so I can cover that little hole. So I'll just go through another rubber band, go through both, and make a really nice tight slip knot. Don't want that to come apart. And then all you have to do is just hide this. So let me just go up through here and grab this and pull it down through. And then I'm going to go through some more over here and just pull that inside. And so here's our little hamburger. You can sort of play around with it and move that stuffing around if you think it needs to be filled in anywhere. And then if you want to try and pull any of your lettuce to get it a little bit more frilly, or try and straighten out these yellows, you can. But I think it turns out really cute, and it's good for this upcoming summer picnic season. Now, if you want to, you could add a face to your hamburger. I think that would turn out really cute. I'm not going to show that, but if you want some ideas, I did add a face to my Loomigurumi taco. I actually added a little mustache and everything, so you can certainly check that out. So I hope that everyone loves their new little 3D hamburgers. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook, post pictures of your creations to my Facebook page, and please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on my latest tutorials. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram, so please feel free to subscribe to those as well. Thanks for watching!